Okay, hello my friends, hello Mr. Matthews. Today I'm going to present about principle of instructed language learning from Ellis 2004. We're going to go to background of the study. There are many research of how second language are acquired has been directed at understanding and contributing to more effective instructed language learning. The numerous studies that have investigated the effects of instruction on learning, from knowledge and articles meta-analysis published in 2000, much of the theorizing about L2 instruction has been specifically undertaken with language pedagogy in mind. For example, Crescent's with monitor model, Long's with interaction hypothesis, De Carrier's with skill learning theory, Van Patten's with input processing theory, and then the last one, the researchers' own theory of instructed language learning, all address the role of instruction in L2 acquisition. And then the objective of the study. In the study, the researchers wanted to present their own professional specification in the form of principles and to draw together the findings from a range of second language acquisition studies in order to formulate a set of general principles for language pedagogy. Everyone will have their own perceptions, and the researchers did not expect that all SLA researchers or all language teachers will agree with them. Furthermore, they hope they will provide a basis for argument and for reflection. In this study, the researchers only summarize and gave opinion from all the researchers' instructions for second language acquisition. Instruction on learning. 1. Develop both a rich repertoire of formulaic expressions and a rule-based competence. 2. Focus predominantly on meaning. 3. Focus on form. 4. Develop implicit knowledge of the L2 while not neglecting explicit knowledge. 5. Take into account the learner's built-in syllabus. 6. Require extensive L2 input. 7. Require opportunities for output. 8. The opportunity to interact in the L2 is central to developing L2 proficiency. 9. Take account of individual differences in learners. And then the last one, it is important to examine free as well as control production. We're going to the first principle. Instruction needs to ensure that learners develop both a rich repertoire of formulaic expressions and a rule-based competence. From Ellis suggested that learners bootstrap their way to grammar by first internalizing and then analyzing fixed sequences. Classroom studies by Ellis, Miles, demonstrate that learners often internalize rote-learned material as chunks, bring them down for analysis later on. Long stated knowledge of specific grammatical rules through the systematic teaching of pre-selected structures referred to focus on form approach. From Ellis, Miles, and Long, they agreed that learners will develop language well by focus on form and internalize rote-learned material. Curriculum designers and teachers need to recognize that this type of instruction is as likely to result in students learning rote memorized pattern as in internalizing abstract rules. And then instruction needs to ensure that learners focus predominantly on meaning. Instructional approach. There are semantic meaning and pragmatic meaning. Semantic meaning means language as an object and function as pedagogues and learners. On the other hand, pragmatic meaning L2 as a tool for communicating and to function as communicators. In advocating this principle, the researchers do not wish to suggest that instruction needs to be directed exclusively at providing learners with opportunities to create pragmatic, meaning only that to be effective, instruction must include such opportunities and that, ideally, over an entire curriculum, they should be predominant. So the researchers do not choose whether the semantic or pragmatic, but both are important to learning language. And then the third principle, the instruction needs to ensure that learners also focus on form. From Skip has argued that there is no learning without conscious attention to form. Instruction can cater to a focus on form in a number of ways. First, through grammar lessons designed to teach specific grammatical features by means of input or output processing. From Smith, he believed that learning language should be focused to form of the language. And then the students will be given grammar lesson to process the input and output. And then the second, through focused tasks. After they have learned about form of language learning, they will be given tasks to make them more focused about the form, to make them more understand and more knowledgeable. And then the last one, by means of methodological options that induce attention to form in the context of performing a task. After they have learned about the form of the language, and then they focus on the task, and then the last stage they will perform the task. The fourth principle, instruction needs to be predominantly directed at developing implicit knowledge of the L2 while not neglecting explicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge underlies the ability to communicate fluently and confidently in an L2. It is type of knowledge that should be ultimate goal of any instructional program. According to the non-interface position, present, explicit and implicit knowledge are entirely distinct, with the result that explicit knowledge cannot be converted into implicit knowledge. This position is supported by research that suggests that explicit and implicit memories are neurological separate. From Paradise, Crescent and Paradise they don't believe that explicit and explicit learning will be related. From the interface position argues the exact opposite. Drawing on skill learning theory from De Keyser, it argues that explicit knowledge becomes implicit knowledge if learners have the opportunity for plentiful communicative practice. And then, the weak interface position, Ellis claimed that explicit knowledge primes a number of key acquisitional processes, in particular noticing and the gap. The fifth principle, instruction needs to take into account the learner's built-in syllabus. There are a number of possibilities the instruction takes account of the learner's built-in syllabus. First, adopt a zero grammar approach as proposed by Crescent, that is, employ a task-based approach that makes no attempt to predetermine the linguistic content of lesson. Ensure that learners are developmentally ready to acquire a specific target feature. Third, focus the instruction on explicit rather than implicit knowledge, as explicit knowledge is not subject to the same developmental constraint as implicit knowledge. The sixth principle, successful instructed language learning requires extensive L2 input. Crescent pointed to studies that have shown the length of residence in the country where the language is spoken is related to language proficiency, and other studies that have found positive correlation between the amount of reading reported and proficiency or literacy. It means that the environment also has effect to the learners. If the learners learn L2 and speak L2 with their friends, with their family, with their teachers outside of classroom, they will more knowledgeable and more practice L2. To ensure adequate access, teachers need to first maximize use of the L2 inside the classroom. To create opportunities for students to receive input outside the classroom. This can be the teacher give a task to the students, whether interview or asking opinion to their friends or their family or their teacher outside of the classroom. The seventh principle, successful instructed language learning, also requires opportunities for output. Sehan, drawing on Swain, summarizes the contribution that output can make. 1. Production serves to generate better input through the feedback that learners' effort as production elicit. It forces synthetic processing, for example, obliges learners to pay attention to grammar. 3. It allows learners to test out hypotheses about the target language grammar. 4. It helps to optimize existing knowledge. 5. It provides opportunities for learners to develop discourse skill, for example, by producing long terms. 6. It is important for helping learners to develop a personal voice by steering conversation on the topics they are interested in contributing to. Ellis adds one other contribution of output. It provides the learners with auto input. For example, learners can attend to the input provided by their own production. The eighth principle, the opportunity to interact in the L2 is central to developing L2 proficiency. According to the interaction hypothesis from Long, interaction foster acquisition when a communication problems arises and learners are engaged in negotiating for meaning. The interactional modification arising help to make input comprehensible, provide corrective feedback, and push learners to modify their own output in uptake. Johnson identifies 4 key requirements for interaction to create an acquisition-rich classroom. First, creating context of language use where students have a reason to attend language. 2. Second, providing opportunities for learners to use the language to express their own personal meanings. Third, helping students to participate in language-related activities that are beyond the current level of proficiency. And the last one, offering a full range of contexts that cater for a full performance in the language. The ninth principle, instruction needs to take account of individual differences in learners. In particular, learning will be more successful when, first, the instruction is matched to the student's particular aptitude for learning. The second, the students are motivated. Teachers can cater to a variation in the nature of their students' aptitude by adopting a flexible teaching approach involving a variety of learning activities. They can also make use of simple learner training materials from Ellis and Sinclair, designed to make students more aware of their own approach to learning and to develop awareness of alternative approach. Good language learner studies suggests that successful language learning requires a flexible approach to learning. In this part, the teachers have an important role to choose the material or activities that appropriate to the students, to make the students motivated, and to make the topic and the activities are related. The last one, in assessing learners' L2 proficiency, it is important to examine free as well as control production. Norris and Ortega's meta-analysis of studies investigating focused instruction demonstrated that the extent of the effectiveness of instruction is contingent on the way in which it is measured. They distinguish four types of measurement. For meta-linguistic judgment, for example, a grammatically judgment test. This test will measure the score of the students' grammars. And then selected responses, for example, multiple choice. This kind of test provide some of answers, and then the students have to choose the correct one. And then constructed responses. For example, gap filling exercises. Actually, this test or this assessment can be in reading test, but listening test also proper for this test. And then the last one, free constructed response. For example, communicative task. It can be easy for high order thinking skill, or it may be for the student's opinion, or maybe the student's perception of the text. It can be for the reading comprehension, or interviewing, or listening comprehension. And then we're going to the last section is conclusion. There will always be a need for a psycholinguistic account of how learners internalize new linguistic forms and how they restructure their linguistic knowledge in the process of acquisition. Language use is not language acquisition, only a means to it. From the researchers, the computational model provides a solid foundation for developing a set of principles that articulate the relationship between language use and acquisition. It also constitutes a metaphor that teachers can easily relate to. Okay, thanks for listening my presentation. Goodbye. God bless you.